Starting. Okay, so this is the trip we had in Israel and Palestine. We met right here in Jerusalem. The first day we went down road number 1 towards the Dead Sea, but we ended up here in Khan el-Ahmar, a Bedouin community from the Jahalin tribe. We drove around this area. We had gone to an outlook that overlooks the Dead Sea in Jericho and the Jordan Valley, and then we went back to Jerusalem. I moved it by mistake. Okay. The next day we left again from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea. We went down road number 1. Then when we reached the Dead Sea, we headed south and we went to En Gedi. This is the desert oasis. This is where we saw ibex and hyrax and flowing water from in the desert. And nearby is the Kibbutz of En Gedi. And then we kept going south. I'm going to flip the map. Actually, don't need this because we didn't get that far. Okay, this is fine. Okay. So from En Gedi, we kept going south until we ended up at our hotel in the Ein Bokek area. We stayed at the Isrotel Nevo, and we went to shoot the salt mushrooms right around here. That was our first day in the Dead Sea. The next day, we set out and we kept going south through here, so all the way past the Dead Sea and to the Arava Junction. Here we went west, and right before Dimona, we went south towards the craters. Here we passed on the way the giant truck. We met the herders, we met the goat herder and the camel herder, and then we went into the large crater. In the large crater, we stopped by the colorful sands, a bunch of hills with different minerals in them, and then we kept going, and right as we exited the large crater, we went to Mount Avnun, a beautiful lookout on the rim of the crater that overlooks the entire thing. We kept going to Yerucham. Used to be a development town, and now it's really rebranding and reshaping itself. And we went to the Yerucham Lake, which is a great hotspot for birding. We had lunch. We had a picnic lunch here, and then from here we kept going west, all the way through Ashalim, and then we made it all the way to Ezuz, right by the Egyptian border. This is the border with Sinai, northern Sinai, which in the northern part also borders the Gaza Strip. In Ezuz, at night, we went to Chamukei Nitzana, those white rock formations that we had some night shooting here. Then the following morning in Ezuz, we went to the Hide to shoot birds and coming to drink. Then we left for the Dune, the Be'er Milka Dune right here. And then we went to the Nabatean City of Shivta, which is right here, one of the best preserved Nabatean cities in Israel, a part of the UNESCO Heritage Site, which is the Incense Route, and we took the tour here and then did some night shooting right here in the northern church of Shivta. The next morning, then we went back to Ezuz, and the next morning we went to Nitzanei Sinai, which is another name for the village of Kadesh Barnea, the Moshav of Kadesh Barnea, which is right at the Egyptian border. We had the outlook over the border, over the military outposts around here, and the little towns and villages that are on the Egyptian side. And from here, we kept going east and then south again until we reached Ein Ovdat, another oasis, another spring in the desert. We went to the outlook above the canyon. We saw the hikers, we saw the birds, and then kept going all the way south to Mitzpe Ramon, right here. In Mitzpe Ramon, once we settled in, we went at night for an Eid al-Fitr dinner at the end of Ramadan in Nachal Aricha, which is a Bedouin village not far from Mitzpe Ramon. We spent the evening here and then went back to sleep in Mitzpe Ramon. The next morning, we had a tour with Gilad inside the Ramon Crater. This is the Ramon Crater right here, this heart-shaped formation. And we went into the crater and then went off-roading, and we practically went around this area. We ended in Mount Gvanim, which is the highest mountain inside the crater, which enabled us to look at all of the surroundings. Then we went back, we rested for lunch, and then we went back, we rested for noontime, and then we went back into the crater to the Ramon Color Reserve, which is right about here, about this area. We drove around there, we had dinner with a fox, and at nighttime we had the astronomy activity right across from it on the other side of the street, not on the other side of the road, not far from where we were in the morning. Drove back, spent the night. The next morning, what did we do the next morning? Oh, we went to Sde Boker. The next morning, we drove north to Midreshet Ben Guryon, the Ben Gurion College. And over here, we went to Ben Guryon's grave, buried right next to his wife Paula, overlooking the beautiful Tzin wilderness and the Tzin riverbed. We were here at the outlook, then went back, and then we kept going north, or actually we kept going northeast. So from Sde Boker, we went back through Yerucham, headed north, went this way through Arad in the Negev, which is a very large Bedouin city. We went here, and once we reached this area of Arad and further north, this is Arad, this is the Arad Valley. Right here, we started seeing a view that was very, very different from what we've seen up until that point. So low hills that are very green, but this really is the connection or the turning point between the southern Hebron hills. This is Mount Hebron, which is an actual mountain ridge. And from here, the ridge drops down and it turns to the Negev, to the Israeli desert. So here we were really able to see how it turns how it turns less green and then brown. And once we started climbing up to Mount Hebron, it was very clear how this gradual change occurs. So from here, we crossed into the West Bank. We went to Atawani, where we met Basel and his brother Salem, which took us around the nearby villages. This area right here is Masafer Yatta, which is a group of 20, what did we decide? 19. Which is a group of about 20 communities, very small communities, each of them with only a few homes, that face eviction because Israel has decided to turn this into a military training ground. So we went and visited just 2 or 3 of these villages, met the people, were hosted in a cave, and Yeah, and really met some fabulous people who were very happy to have us there. From Atawani, we kept going north through the West Bank, all the way through Hebron and Bethlehem, through the roads that go around them. We didn't go into the cities. And then okay. Good. Okay. So we passed Hebron and Bethlehem. We didn't go into the cities. We just drove around them, went to Jerusalem, picked up the car, and from here we took road number 1 and then road number 6 to go all the way to Pardes Hanna right here. We spent the night, and then the next morning we went to the former fish ponds here in Ma'ayan Tzvi, which is a kibbutz, and it has a beautiful, beautiful coast. It had a beautiful, beautiful coastline, so we shot some birds and went to see the dunes, which are very typical of this area of Israel. We then came back, and then in the afternoon we went to Regavim, to the kibbutz named Regavim, which is where we had a tour of the kibbutz and then spent the Yom HaZikaron service, the memorial service for Israel's fallen soldiers and people who died in terrorist attacks throughout the existence of Israel. And that's where we spent the night. The next day, I'm blanking out. The next day, what did we do? Oh, we went to the Gilboa. Okay. There we go. Okay. The next day, we went through Wadi Ara, the road that goes through many of the Arab villages around here, by El-Fahim, one of the largest Israeli Arab cities that there are. Then we went all the way east. We didn't get all the way to Afula. We took a right before that and went to Mount Gilboa. We actually went to an area of Mount Gilboa called Katef Shaul, Shaul's shoulder, which is a little ridge that peaks to the north of the Gilboa range, named after King Saul. We enjoyed amazing photography of flowers and the Jezreel and Harod Valley right below us. And from there, we kept going on the scenic route all the way to Bet She'an, where we visited the Bet She'an Antiquities, which is the second largest archaeological site in Israel and the largest contiguous archaeological excavation in Israel. From here, we took road number 90, which we've been on several times by the Dead Sea and also here up north. And then we went along the Sea of Galilee and went to Mount Arbel for a lookout over the Sea of Galilee, over the northern part and the southern part of the Sea of Galilee. And from there, we kept going north until we reached Tsfat. The next morning, we went east through Rosh Pinna, again through road number 90, and went to the Hulla Valley to take a private tour with a golf cart and shoot the birds that were there. We went back, and then in the afternoon, we went to Meron village, which has the Rashbi's grave, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a sage from the 2nd century, and one of the main reasons that this area has this holy aura to it, and one of the main reasons that people have always been attracted to Tsfat, to live here. We went here, we went into several of the sites around here, both the grave marking and another grave that was around there, met the people, and afterwards, for sunset, we went all the way around to Mount Meron, to the top of Mount Meron, the second highest mountain in Israel. From here, we could see all of this view, all the way to Mount Hermon, and all the way to the southern part of the Sea of Galilee. We had dinner right here in the village of Jish, Gush Chalav in Hebrew, a Lebanese Maronite village that the people that were here spoke to us extensively about their loss of connection with their relatives right here in Lebanon after Israel pulled out of the security belt in the year 2000. The next morning, from Tsfat, we went to the northern road of Israel, which goes right along the Lebanese border. So we went all the way north, and from here we drove very close to the fence, to the border fence, until we went east, dropped down to the Hulla Valley, and then went back up to the Golan, so the eastern side of the Hulla Valley, and then right by Meron Golan, we went to the outlook at Mount Bental, which is right here. The next morning, we drove north to Tel Dan Reserve. So we actually went through the valley right here. We went to the Tel Dan Reserve where we shot the water streams. This is one of the 3 tributaries of the Jordan River. And from here, on our way back, we stopped at the Sa'al waterfall, where we bought a lot of local produce from a local farmer, and we saw the waterfall, which is now flowing almost in full strength. We passed by the town of Enkinia, one of the Druze towns that are still left in the Golan, went back, and in the evening, after touring around here and photographing in this area, we went to dinner at Salma's house in Bukata, another one of the Druze villages or Druze towns in the Golan. On our last day, we drove through this area in this rainy morning. We went to the former, not true. Sorry. You're gonna have to cut that and go back. After Tel Dan, we drove back. We stopped by the Sar waterfall and brought a lot of produce from a local farmer. And then we got back to Meron Golan, from which we took a jeep tour to this area right on the Syrian border, where we saw some old tanks that were destroyed in the war of 67 and 73, and we could have the outlook to all these villages right around the Syrian border. So a look well into Syria. In the evening, we drove around this area to take some shots and then had dinner in Bukata at Salma's house. The next morning, which was very rainy, we drove around by ourselves in this area where we had some beautiful lookouts and plays of light and shade and clouds coming in and out. And we also went to the former Syrian headquarters right around here, which is one of the sites that the Israeli spy Eli Cohen used to visit in his attempts to help Israel mark the Syrian military camps and headquarters around the Golan. Then, in the afternoon, we drove south, or west and south, back to Pardes Hanna, right here, which is where we spent the night. Easy.
It's pretty incredible.
That's a long, detailed, wow.